welcome to the Home Trails podcast. So we're well into 2026 now. The spine race has gone, it's been and gone, but there'll still be some spine related episodes, obviously, as we sort of wrap up coverage of this year's races. So we'll have some interviews, post-race interviews with people coming up, including myself and my notorious DNF that I had in Spine Challenges South. But we'll have some interviews with winners and people involved with the race to sort of wrap up that coverage for this year. Then we'll possibly have some Arc of Attrition stuff going on. Then we'll move into our spring stuff, which will be the lap, etc., etc. And there's some big things coming this year, some exciting projects that I've got on the go. So keep your eyes peeled for that content. But in the meantime, let's dive into our interview. Okay, so welcome for the first time to the Home Trials podcast, Kris Jones.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for coming on. So I quickly hit record because I've got too many questions for you, and I didn't want to waste any golden content that we could talk about. So we were just about to start talking about mud, weren't we? Like, which is obviously something that you've encountered a lot of recently. So how did you feel about the mud at the Arc?
Yeah, I raced the Arc 25 last year, and it was a bit muddy. I think it was wetter this year, and I obviously got to experience the what's it, 2 hours, 2 and a bit hours from Pendine to St. Ives this year, and that was yeah, that was an experience. It was felt fine at the time, but then later in the race, my legs were absolutely cooked, and I'm still recovering now. So that's been
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. So you said you'd actually been for a run tonight. So how are you sort of returning to running then?
I didn't run at all last week. I'd cycled a bit, but had a whole week off. I've started running this week, just with some kind of 45, 50 minute jogs, um, with the idea of being that as those felt okay, I'd build up from there, but I still haven't built up from there. I'm still just doing a 45-minute, 50-minute jog. Still a few little niggles hanging around, still recovering, but I say also quite aware that it was my longest race, so just to give the recovery the respect it
Yeah.
deserves. So
Yeah, that's it. So this it's the first time that you've ran a 50 miler then.
yeah, yeah. So it was my longest race by about an hour 40 and about 20K. So
Yeah.
yeah,
New territory.
new territory. Yeah, but
New
fun.
new pains. Amazing. We'll dive into that. But first, I've got to ask you the opening question that all new guests get, unfortunately, which is the superhero question. So most people know what it is. That if all superheroes have an origin story. So, um, Kris, because you're such an ultra running superhero, what's your origin story? What's your backstory? How did you get into ultra running? I know that you came from, I don't want to sort of speak for you, but I know you came from a non-traditional sort of background, like orienteering.
Yeah. So orienteering was my first sport. I started when I was sort of 12, 13. Um, my family all did orienteering. We went along as a family. Um, and it was kind of the first sport I was pretty good at. Um, so I enjoyed it. I was okay at it. Or at least I got better. And I got a lot of friends in it. So it kind of, through my teenage years, that was a big motivation is that I enjoyed going to orienteering races. I enjoyed seeing my friends. I enjoyed going to, sort of Welsh junior squad and after a while, sort of British junior squads and kind of um, just getting to meet people and you know enjoy the sport there. And up until yeah, so I did orienteering all through junior years. Did quite well. Sort of won a silver medal at Junior World Champs. Um, and carried on doing it through university. I went to Sheffield, and started to get into senior teams. So my first senior world champs was in 2013. Um, and kind of just that was my whole focus for kind of the first years. Um, as an orienteer, you always run because there's only so much, orienteering is you need a map and you need a course planned and you need all these things to go and do the sport. And so, I was lucky in Swansea. The orienteering club was great and put on a lot of events, but um, the rest of the week you end up doing running. And so I joined Swansea Harriers as well at a young age and um, ran all the cross countries in schools and did all that stuff. But I was okay. I wasn't great runner. I was pretty good club level runner, very good orienteer. Um, and it was really when I moved up to Scotland, I started my PhD, um, and I kind of moved out of the kind of university bubble. My PhD was funded by industry, so I was in an office. I had a
Mm.
commute and I had a lot more routine around life and around training and kind of through. So I started that in 2015 and then through 15, 16, 17, my kind of running came on a lot and that helped my orienteering a lot. I had some good results through those years. Best being I was fourth at World Champs in 2016 and third in European Champs in 2018. But also I got started to be a lot better runner. I had my first Welsh vest in 2016 in the 10K Leeds Abbey Dash. Um, and my first GB vest was in 2017 at the 10,000 meter European Cup. Um, and so for a number of years, I kind of juggled being, you know, pretty good orienteer and a pretty good runner, focusing mainly on the kind of 10K, 5K, 10K, and cross country. Um, and that was kind of how it went through for the next number of years. Um, when I started to be better at running in 2016, I got my first Welsh vest, Leeds Abbey Dash, and I ran 29:30-ish in the 10K, which at the time was a PB by about a minute and a half because wasn't typically running that much kind of flat races around that time. I was doing
Mm.
a lot of orienteering and, in the off season or, when it fitted in, I'd run a race. So I got these big jumps. And at the time it was the Commonwealth Games standard for Wales was 28:50, I think, for it was in Brisbane in 2018, Gold Coast maybe. But I thought the year after I should really have a crack at that because, I'd just taken a minute and a half off my PB and run 29:30. Maybe I could take another 40 seconds off and run 28 something. Um, and so I had a go. I didn't end up making the time. I ran 29:0 something, but that was how I got my first GB vest was I ran 29:0 something in Highgate night of the 10K PBs that year, and then was selected to go to the 10,000 meter European Cup afterwards. And that what that comes round to is in 2022, I wanted to go to the Commonwealth Games again, and so in 2021, my kind of main focus really was on 10,000 meters on the track, and the qualifying time was 28:30 that time around. Um, and honestly, it was. I'm not sure I ever really thought I could run 28:30, but I thought I would be doing myself a disservice if I didn't at least give it my
Mm.
best shot.
Mm.
Um, obviously, that was um, we're still opening up from COVID there, so I ran a 10K in Newport that had about 8 people in the race, and I had to drive down from Scotland and all of that in March that year, and I ran 28:33, and I thought, oh, I can do this, and so um, in June I think I ran um, what would have been the night of the 10,000 meter PBs. It wasn't in Highgate, it was in Birmingham, but I ran that race and I ran 28:23. So I
Oh,
thought, oh yeah, got it. Um, and then fast forward a year, I wasn't selected. So I had the time. Um, I was, I had some injury problems at the back end of 21, but I was coming back into a good run of form, and I was
mm.
pretty confident that if I'd been selected, I'd have been, at least able to give a good showing. I wouldn't have been stood on the start line unfit and injured. But yeah, not selected, and primarily down to the kind of pressure on team sizes. So, um, Welsh Athletics nominate a team of people who've got the standard, and then Team Wales decides who actually goes. And I was unfortunate to miss out. And it was a very frustrating experience. Um, and then later in the summer, I went to the World Orienteering Champs, and I had so it was in Denmark, and I had 3 races there. We won the silver medal in the sprint relay, which was fantastic. One of the best days I've had in sport. Um, I was sixth in the knockout sprint, um, which is kind of a race with a series of rounds, and people get eliminated each round. Um, but I had essentially a very up and down day that day. Some of my races during the rounds were really good, and some were quite frankly atrocious. And actually, I was sixth, but I mean, I was last in the final, so I had a really bad race in the final round. And then in the individual sprint, I ran into third place at the finish, but then um, when I sort of checked my timing chip at the end, that I'd run and I'd missed one of the checkpoints. So
No.
I just run straight past it. So I thought for about 2 minutes I'd won the bronze medal, which would have been, my best result. Um, so in short, I had a very frustrating summer because I wanted to be on the start line of the Commonwealth Games. Um, I wanted to be kind of winning medals in those orienteering races, which I mean, I came away with a medal with the relay, so I was chuffed with that. But it felt like a very frustrating time period where I believed I had the kind of
Talent.
capacity to do
Mm.
what I wanted to do, but just came up short. Um, and so around that time, so my wife also runs, and she'd entered a race in the Lake District, the Scafell Pike Trail Marathon, and it was around the same time as the Commonwealth Games. And I thought the original plan after not getting selected to the Commonwealth Games was to go run some 5Ks, but I thought I'm not in the position where I can be on a track racing right now because I'd have just been racing out of kind of frustration and
Mm.
you know I just didn't want to do that. So I thought, oh yeah, I'll enter this race. It's a trail marathon in the lakes, and I'd done just the nature of orienteering. You do bits and bobs, and like I'd done fell races before, and I'd run kind of some trail races, and just jumped into things here and there. But so I thought, yeah, I'll jump into that, and then so I entered it with about 6 weeks to go to the race, and then shortly after entering, found out it was the trial to the World Champs in Thailand. So I entered without knowing it was the trial, but um, after a week or so, I realized it was the trial and thought, oh no, I'm not focused on that, but if it
Give
happens,
it a go.
great.
Mm.
And I was really fit that summer. I was running really well on 10K. Um, so I went to the race and I won that race. And so I went to Thailand, and um had a really fun experience in Thailand. Really great group of people. We were out there for sort of 8 or 9 days. A bit of acclimatizing and then the races, and had a load of fun. Came fifth in that race, which was way better than I thought I would. Paced it incredibly well, didn't blow up in the heat, had some awful cramp at the end, but just about managed to um, nurse myself into the finish. Um, and then I went and ran Seville Marathon in the February after that because I thought, you know, done with track, not in a mindset to go back to it right now. Let's go to the marathon because
Mm.
that's what every track runner thinks. Um, and I ran okay in Seville. I fell short of what I wanted, but what I didn't like was that I got very close back into that mindset of like time matters.
Mm.
And it's a really frustrating mindset because when I was racing on the track, I'd know if I turn up to a 10K race, almost I'd feel elated if it went well and devastated if it went badly.
Mm.
And the difference between those would be 20 seconds, 25 seconds maybe. And you just thought, I don't want to get into this habit of turning up to a race and turning up to a marathon and ending up running 2 minutes slower than I wanted to and feeling like that was a bad race because
Mm.
I mean it's 2 minutes. Who cares at the end of the day? So I'd had this really positive experience on the trails in Thailand where I didn't think about time once. I was just racing as best as I could, enjoying racing other people, and then I went to the marathon and started to fall back into that kind of, the mindset I didn't want to have.
Mm.
And so that was really long. So that was where I decided, yeah, I'm going to shift onto the trails much more full time and just give it a good go and
Mm.
see what I can do. Um, so it's yeah, since then it's been much more focus on trails and yeah, a lot more learning about that.
Yeah. 20 seconds here and there doesn't make any
Yeah,
difference.
yeah. And the other thing with track, if I was gonna step up a level on the track, I'd have needed to run a minute faster on 10K. So the race I ran my 28:23 10,000 meter PB was the Olympic trials for Tokyo, and
Mm.
I was fifth Brit in that race. But to go to the Olympics, I'd have needed to run at least a minute faster.
Wow.
And so the difference to get to the next level was quite big. And I thought, well, what I want to be is racing at the best level I can and getting the most out of myself. And I felt like I'd done a lot of that. I've raced well on a kind of UK scene, and I've got kind of these, B internationals on the track. I did a world champs half marathon. I did Eurocross a couple of times. I'd really kind of raced at a high level, but to get to the next level would have been, yeah, really hard. And I thought, do you know what? There's more to experience. It was
Mm.
never about trying to get the highest level I could. It's always been about trying to experience
Mm.
as much kind of races as I can and have that kind of fun element.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I never realized that, your story was that sort of, it was almost like a sliding doors kind of situation, wasn't it? Like one door closing and another door opening. Do you look
Yeah.
back on that now and think, what if you'd been selected and you'd gone, would your life be completely different? Or do you think you still would have ended up sort of coming down this road to trail and ultra?
I think I might have ended up coming down this road anyway, but it certainly would have taken longer, and it might have been after, you know, it might not even have been by now. It might have been after a few more years of track or
Mm.
a longer stint at the marathon. And really, 2021 or 2022 was in some ways a really good year because I raced really well a lot, but I fell so incredibly short of what I wanted, like close to what I wanted, but not quite there, that it was also an incredibly frustrating year.
Mm,
And it kind of made that kind of it made that just to, that kind of difference between um the trail where I felt like it was a new thing, pressure was off. I felt like there was so much more to learn versus these areas that I'd raced a lot in, and I knew I could be really good, and I was really good, but I just wasn't quite getting to where I wanted to be. It made that
mm,
the kind of option quite stark of like, do I want to keep banging my head against the wall, trying to, you know, chip off 20 seconds off a 10K time, or, you know, getting 10 seconds closer to the win in a orienteering race, or do I want to just do something where I can, not know the answers for a while. I can learn and develop, and there'll be big gaps in what I kind of am able to do, but I can also see maybe bigger improvements.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the whole like the whole 20-second thing, like that being like deciding whether you think a race was good or not. Like from a trail running perspective, that just seems like mind-boggling, doesn't it? Because 20 seconds is nothing, is it, in a trail or an ultra? Have you
Yeah.
sort of how has it sort of been that transition from that mindset to was it exactly what you wanted? Kind of like you done with that statistical side, sort of the you know fighting for seconds and go moving over. Was that an easy transition for you? Did you just feel natural to be able to lose that stress of that previous life you had, kind of thing?
I think it feels natural on the trail, like because it's you can never go into a race knowing exactly what you're aiming for.
Mm,
I know we have records and things like that, but there's a big element of um records being dependent on the conditions.
mm,
And so it's not like you turn up to a 5K race and um you know what a good 5K is, in your head. Whereas, I ran the Arc 2 weeks ago, and I knew what Tom had run the year before, but at no point in my head was I thinking, you know, I'm aiming for his time. I was thinking I'm
mm,
aiming to run the best race I can. And, if in the last hour it looks like I can race for his, race to kind of beat his time, then great. But if I'm not in that position because I'm slower or because the trail conditions are worse or the weather's worse, then I don't really care because I'm racing the people on the day.
mm,
So it's much easier, I feel, to just, you know, you still know about time. I still do a lot of kind of looking at splits and analysis and all of that, but it's kind of giving it the right place rather than giving it the weight of, you know, success or failure. Um, you see it a lot you see it across all road racing distances, but marathons where if you run 2:59:59, you're a sub 3 hour runner, and if you run
mm.
3:01, you're not. And it's
Yeah.
like, well,
Mm.
it's super arbitrary, isn't it? So
Yeah. 304 for me, unfortunately.
yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because well, to be like a track runner and road runner, it's like serious dedication and training and everything. Have you transferred all that the serious part of training to your trail running now? Do you still feel like the same runner, but just in a different environment?
Yeah, I mean, the best I've ever felt on any kind of distance is actually when all the really basic elements of fitness have been in good, strong place. So I feel like actually, if I'm in really good shape to run a good half marathon, that's actually really good, regardless of what
Mm,
I'm aiming for, whether it's track or whether it's the trail. And almost like having that really strong base of kind of volume and good intensity during the week and kind of um yeah, getting the kind of basic work done. You have that base and then you put 2, maybe 3 months of real specificity on top, and then um that's what gives you the result. It's not about always training just the trail races.
The thing I was trying to get to, the point I was trying to get to is the way that you sort of train for trail and ultra. Is it still based on your training that you sort of did for track and road, or is it very sort of? Because I know obviously like now there's more sort of professionalization of trail and ultra running, isn't there? That it's not just like it used to be, just guys going out running as much as possible and not really worrying about doing many workouts, and that kind of got people through the early stages of ultra running. But now it's more of a professional. Um, for people coming in. So if you do you
Yeah.
base all of your training on what you've sort of always done for track and road, or is it a complete switch up to trail and ultra?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a bit of both, but I've always felt like I'm in the best position where um my like base fitness, my speed is good, my endurance is good. I'm doing the volume in the week, I'm doing the good sessions. And almost like if I'm in good shape to run a good half marathon, then I'm probably in good shape to run, you know, above that, below that as
Mm.
well. And um almost like I spend most of the year just training quite similarly to how I would have before, and then probably spend a few months before important races focusing more on the trail specifics. There are some differences. I do a lot more workouts uphill now, on the treadmill, which is actually I probably would keep that even if I'm running on the track now, because I think it's a really nice option that doesn't beat up the legs as much.
Yeah,
I do longer long runs now. Quite often I'll do kind of 3 hours. I don't tend to go much more than 4, maybe 4.5 hours for a long run. Um, I prefer when I'm in that specific phase doing more, um, 3 and a bit hour long runs, but doing them at race effort. I
yeah.
think that's more specific.
Mm.
But otherwise, the rest of the week looks much like it would have done before. I probably do more cycling now, but again, if I was going to run a 10K in June, I'd probably keep cycling because it's a nice way of um, just adding volume to the week without um, you know, necessarily adding too much stress to the legs.
Mm. What are
So
you
yeah,
doing in cycling then? What is it just to sort of get that aerobic sort
yeah.
of trigger, or is it do you do any workouts on the bike or anything?
I do work out on the bike, but tends to be just when I'm coming back from an injury or after a race. So now building back from the Arc, I'll probably do a few workouts on the bike before I do workouts running. But normally it's just I'll do um, 1 or 2, maybe 3 rides a week and just get a few hours in um, that I wouldn't have been able to get in running. So
Mhm.
probably last year, a normal week for me would have looked at about 11 hours of running and maybe 4 or 5 hours on the bike.
That's
And
interesting.
maybe I could have maintained 11 and a half, 12 hours of running, but I certainly couldn't have maintained that kind of 15 hours of aerobic exercise without switching to the bike. So it's kind of a nice um, way of just adding in some aerobic volume without, you know, the extra pressure on the legs.
Mm. So, sort of, with your experience then, if you were sort of advising somebody coming into ultra running now, not necessarily from like a track background and road background like yourself, what would you sort of your advice be for people to focus on mainly with training? Would it be to sort of build traditional like endurance zones and speed work and the flat, and then do specific hill work? Or would you sort of say just get into ultra running and get used to the terrain and then start to do a more
I,
traditional?
because it's the way I've come from, I'd probably say build your fitness, train like a half marathon runner
Mm,
maybe, and then um, get the specificity later. You can get the specificity in from just, doing your long runs on in the hills or on
mm,
trails. Um, Most trail runners, or certainly I think a lot of trail runners in the UK won't train on the trails every day. I probably do 70% of my running on roads. Um,
mm,
but it's just because that's the way I came from it. I think the harder thing, or the thing that takes longer, is to build the fitness. And if you can keep building the fitness, then you'll kind of keep improving, I think.
yeah. Yeah, because over the years I've spoken to sort of lots of people with different backgrounds and how they come into ultra running and stuff, there is a bit of a coinciding with other people that have come from like a road or sort of track background and have kept that speed and that way of training and then brought that into ultra running, which used to be, like I said, it was people just get used to go out and run, and they got success in that way by just being out running as much as possible. um so would you say that at what sort of point is it kind of like diminishing returns? So if you sort of train for like a did traditional kind of like marathon training where you're mostly on road kind of thing, and that gave you success at like 50k and 50 mile, where does it sort of, where does the benefits of that end if you're then moving up to like
Yeah,
100k and 100 mile plus sort of thing?
I don't really know, and I think it's hard for me because my background was obviously orienteering, where
Mm,
you run in forests and sand dunes and hills and all sorts, and so my background is running off road, and so even though I had a good number of years focused kind of on the road and the track, I've never found the kind of off-road part of it to be like the crux.
mm,
Um, one of the things I really like about trail running is it seems to be this like melting pot of just people from different backgrounds. So you get people from cycling backgrounds, from triathlon, you get people
mm,
from mountaineering backgrounds and fell walking, and you get people from athletics and orienteering and all these, and there's no one right way of going about it, and it's about kind of trying to find the way that works for you. And I I was self-coached for a number of years. I'm now coached by Doug Stewart, Elite Trail Team, and one of the things I value from him is not necessarily the fine input on how to get fit, because I know how to get fit. I've done it many times over the years, but um it's kind of those blind spots of like, oh, you know, you need to also account for this because there's so much happening in the trail race that can derail your performance that isn't just fitness. And so it's about actually trying to make sure that what I'm doing in training is, well, it's getting me super fit, but it's not leaving me with this kind of massive weakness that's going to be exposed on race day, whether that be, fueling or leg conditioning for the downhills or preparation for the heat or all those things. Um, so yeah, I think the nice thing about it is that there's lots of paths is probably the answer to the question. And it's not necessarily just a one size fits all.
mm. Yeah, it is true, isn't it? As you were sort of saying that, you were sort of saying triathletes, and I was thinking Lucy Gossage, yeah, and you were
Mm.
talking about like, yeah, mountaineers and stuff, and you just think of all these people that have sort of come into the sport from different backgrounds and have had success, and is that based on, their ability to sort of adjust to a new environment and put that training and that discipline that they already had to sort of good use? I suppose that's kind of what it is, isn't it?
Yeah. And the other thing is I think fitness is fitness. Like if you
Yeah.
build it in ski mountaineering or if you build it
Yeah.
on mountain biking or it 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 might take some work to translate it, but it doesn't disappear.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So your sort of experience then racing now is like you've stepped up to 50 miler. Is this like a steady sort of stepping stone sort of situation that you're going to keep moving up in distance, or are you sort of happy that you've stepped up to 50 mile and you're going to stay there for a bit, or are you going to drop back down? What are you thinking?
It, so one of the things that motivates me in sport is figuring out problems. I'm never I'm really competitive. I love racing people. I love kind of being in the thick of it, but I more than that, I like seeing if I can do something and trying, figuring out how I can do it better. And so the 50 miler was just a kind of, oh, this is a nice problem to have because,
Mm.
it's longer than I've ever tried before. I was in, so I raced OCC last year and I was fifth, and I was the only one in the top six who didn't have like real pedigree on the longer races. And I thought, well,
Mm.
hang on, like maybe there's a missing link here that I need to do something to work on that kind of, or maybe there's something these guys are getting from their experience of the longer stuff, whether
Mm.
that's physical or mental or whatever it is, that I'm missing out on. And so it's kind of part of that, and just part of trying to kind of keep enjoying the sport and keep having new challenges. Um, I I do plan to race another 50 mile-ish race this year. Um, but I'll go back to OCC in August. That'll be the main target of the year, and I think it'll be the third time I've done it, and um it's hopefully a race that I know a lot about now. So
Mm.
it's kind of a mix of things. But yeah, it seemed like a cool thing to try and do. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you feel like that's the race that you want to nail first before you then sort of move up further in distance?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can run faster, and I mean, part of it's also motivated by the fact that I this year they ran a different course.
Mm.
So I ran the normal OCC course in 2024, was it? And then last year it was the kind of modified course where we dropped down into the valley.
Is that because of the
Um,
weather? Was that because of the
yeah,
weather?
yeah,
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 was
yeah.
something.
It
Yeah.
was quite wet, but it was, I mean, maybe it was because we stayed lower down that I didn't find it that bad. It was certainly very stormy out there after I'd finished. So I think some of the later runners probably had a bit of um, wet and wild experience out there. But yeah, I feel like I can run faster on that original course, and I'd like to go and try. And um, yeah, that's the motivator is just to see, yeah, can I go a bit faster? And then three times feels like a good amount of time to do something. It's maybe I'll want to do it a fourth, but three times seems like enough time to kind of try it and hopefully keep getting better.
Mm.
Yeah.
So what? Just thinking about Arc, then we haven't really talked that much about the Arc, and that's the whole point of getting you on was sort of to talk about how that race went. So just talk about your sort of history with the race and why you've gone back again this year.
Yeah, so I mean, I did the Arc 25 last year in its first iteration as a
Mm.
UTMB World Series race, and I mean, I really enjoyed it. It was I, the thing I like is that there's two UTMB series races in the UK, and they both were very good races in their own right before the
Mm,
UTMB came in, and they both have like massive character that's really unique and distinct. And
mm,
that's kind of what I remember about the Arc from last year was just it just had its own character of like coastal path, little picturesque inlets and towns and really varied terrain. And I kind of I wanted to support that as like a British race. I'd love to see that race grow in stature. And I think it's at the perfect time of year because it's in January. There's not that much else happening. There's
mm.
obviously the Spine, but that's kind of a different beast. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe some of the 100 milers that overlaps for, but
Mm,
if you're more of the shorter 50K, 50-mile trail runner, there's not much on at that time of year,
mm,
and also think it gives. I mean, the weather is part of the character of the arc. It's
mm.
often, yeah, often all weathers, isn't it? It's um, named the Arc of Attrition for good
Good reason.
reasons. And so, and the other thing is as a 50 miler, or UTMB have the 100K category. It's a
Mm,
very easy entry into the 100K category for me. It's a 7 hour race rather than, if I was going to go to UTS 100K, that would be a 11, 12 hour race.
mm,
Um, so it was a nice time of year, nice, really cool event that, I enjoyed the 25 last year. And I thought, yeah, it's a good opportunity to put something in the calendar that kind of breaks up the winter and gives me
mm.
kind of a stepping stone into a new year. Yeah, it's been really good.
Great place to start.
Yeah.
So thinking about the sort of the conditions that you had for the Arc 50, I know there was a lot of mud around, wasn't there? So you're a Hoka man, aren't you? So
Mm.
what was your shoe of choice for that weather?
Well, I was staying with my parents and my wife, but also with Keith Wigley from
Oh yeah,
the Elite Trail team as
Andy
well.
Keith. Yeah.
And I think I scared him on the morning of the race because I changed my shoe choice. We did a little run the day before on the first section of trail, and I was fully prepared to wear the Tecton X3, which is what I wore last year
Mm,
for the 25. Um, but it had rained a lot more overnight, and I woke up to these images of 100 milers slipping and sliding, and I thought
mm,
I'm just going to go for something with a little bit more. It's not necessarily more grip, but I ran in the Mafate 5, which is
mm.
um, it's not necessarily more grip, but it's a more kind of um, straightforward shoe. It's not as
Yeah.
aggressive, um, and I was comfortable running a long way in that shoe. And I thought, do you know what? It's going to be a 7 hour race. Maybe the Tecton are slightly faster. I'm sure they are, but is it worth it if you know, end up slipping or
Yeah.
um, you're not confident on any of the sections of trails because of the conditions. So I thought I'm going to go for. So I went for the Mafate 5, which is more of I'd character it more like a training shoe, but it gave me confidence and yeah.
Mm. Like
But I
more
made
like
that decision.
a sturdy all rounder kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Do a lot of training in the winter in it. It's kind of yeah, it's a bit of a tank. It's very robust. It's
Reliable.
got good
Yeah.
grip. Yeah. But I say I made that decision maybe 2 hours before the race because
Mm.
um I was fully committed to wearing the X3 the day before.
Did that sort of shake Keith with his shoe choice then? Was he sort of questioning his?
I mean, I think he was questioning his, but he had one option, so he didn't really have much choice. It didn't seem to bother him though, so
Yeah, he's an ultra man, isn't he? Keith.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's an ultra runner. That's yeah. It was always interesting when I speak to you guys, sort of through the like elite trail team. I've spoken to a few of you now, and that's so good into it that you're all sort of together in a team, but you're not bound by those choices in kit, are you? That you can
Yeah.
choose different sponsors, and so how was your sort of how did you get into the elite trail team then? Was this something that where you were approached, or is it something you applied for?
I applied. It was, well, I've been in 2 years, so it'd be after that 2023 season. I had some good results. I think I was eighth at the World Champs that year, in Innsbruck. But I was definitely realizing that I knew an awful lot about how to get fit,
Mm.
but I didn't know that much about all the other stuff. And so I saw the advert on Instagram, um, thought it sounded like a great idea, applied, and yeah, it's been fantastic. And the way I'd kind of characterize it is, the support team. So Doug with coaching, Rebecca with nutrition, Charlotte with sleep, Josie with psychology. Um, it's just good to be able to have input from people that are smarter than me and people with more experience than me. And so having those kind of experts on hand to answer questions, share knowledge, um, and figure things out when, we don't know the answer has been massive. And then having teammates who go through the same issues or have strengths that are different to yours. It's just you have someone you can ask questions to and, um, shortcut a lot of those lessons I'm sure I'd have learned in much harder ways. So
Mm.
yeah, it's been fantastic. Yeah.
That's good, isn't it? So how does it kind of work on a day-to-day basis then? What kind of input you get in like regularly as the week goes on? Does it work like that, or is it monthly, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, I talk to Doug an awful lot, as sort of coaching input. We talk as athletes. We have a weekly Zoom call where we just catch up and we talk about how running's going, we talk about how life's going, we talk about all sorts. Um, and then around the other kind of experts, we kind of get the opportunity to, um, for them to feed in as and when required, really. Yeah, it's really trying to make sure that not necessarily no stones unturned, because I'm not a massive fan of the whole, marginal gains type thing. I think
Mm.
actually most of it is basics. Most of it is getting the really simple things right. And I had a call with Charlotte about sleep today, and it's just reinforcing the basics of, you know, making sure you're going to bed at consistent times, making sure you're waking up at consistent times, making sure you're not, you know, doing things that are going to impact how you sleep, like, being on your phone late at night and all those things that are just, you seem, um, might seem trivial, but we all get those basics wrong. And having experts to feed in where you go, no, actually, have you tried this? Have you tried that? And can tweak that advice for your individual circumstances. Yeah, I say people smarter than me. That's the that's the best thing about it.
We all need that, don't we? We all need people that are
Mm,
smarter than us around us
yeah.
for everything in life. So you can like genuinely see the a big difference in the way that you perform then based on, this advice that you're getting regularly from the group.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it, it it's really hard because 90% of, well, I mean, not percentage on it, but so much of performance is just fitness. So
Mm.
if you turn off the start line as fit as you can be, then you're setting up for a good performance.
Mm.
And I knew how to do that prior to joining the team. Like I had good results at World Champs, in Thailand and Innsbruck, but it's the after Innsbruck World Champs, I kind of had a summer that was very up and down racing on the trails. I raced well at, Mozart Marathon. I raced very badly at Sierra Zinal, and then I kind of got an injury that meant I dropped out of. I was in the Nice 50K by UTMB. And I think the input from, well, the coaching input, the nutrition, the recovery, all of those things, I think their main benefit is helping smooth those things out.
Mm.
So I'm generally staying healthier. I'm better able to perform consistently rather than just when everything's come together. And I'm not falling into these pitfalls in races where, I didn't take the enough gels, or,
Mm.
I've got plans. I've got um yeah, it's even little things like I spent an awful lot of time finessing what was in my bag for the Arc because I had the conversation with Hugh Chatfield, who ran Dragon's Back, which is a logistics exercise, and so he loves
Mm.
it. And so that was the idea from him, is just weigh things and get everything listed out and weighed, and you know comparing folding cups to see which weighed less, and all of those sorts of things that I wasn't doing prior to joining the
Mm.
team. Yeah, I say it's definitely been a benefit. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, that'll come in handy for when you do the spine
Yeah.
bag logistics. What are your feelings on nutrition then, as far as like the advice that you're getting for, you've come from a road and track sort of background, but they were obviously shorter races. Obviously it's not a new thing, but it's sort of getting more attention into it, like carbs per hour and
Yeah.
everything. Where do you sort of stand on those discussions?
Yeah. So I mean, before I joined the team, I think I've written these things down, all the big races I've done, and I think for um, world champs in Innsbruck, I was maybe like 75 grams an hour, something like that. Um, but since joining the team, I've got a lot more kind of intentional about how I'm portioning that as well. So I'm on higher numbers now. For the arc, I aimed for 110 grams an hour, and I managed that for the first 6 hours, and then I missed a gel, which I think dropped me down to 100 grams an hour average. But um, it's
Still
about
pretty
being
high, isn't
more,
it?
yeah, it's about being
Yeah.
more intentional with it as well, though. So um, I tend to work just on gels. We use endurance gels, which are 45
Yeah.
grams, which
I
is,
use them as well. Yeah.
for me, they're great because 45 grams is make getting a lot of carbs in quite easy.
Mm.
And I tend to have them, well, 20 every 25 minutes is what I work on. So it's really,
Mm.
there's no thinking involved anymore. There's no, um, am I having carb drink? Do I now need a gel? I just work on every 25 minutes. I put a gel in. Um, and that's worked really well for me. It worked really well for me the whole of the arc. The reason I didn't have the gel at the end wasn't a fueling thing; it was a hydration thing. Because I was putting away a decent amount of fluid, but I was peeing a lot in the arc. I think I stopped
Mm.
like 4 or 5 times, um, and so I had a little extra salt that I could have, and I had that. But by hour 6, I was kind of sick of drinking, and
Mm.
I find that once you stop drinking, it makes makes eating the gels harder. And what I didn't want to do
Mm.
was keep forcing the gels in at quite a high rate, but not have the fluid needed. So at the last checkpoint, I picked up a bottle of Coke, which actually went down very well. Um, but yeah, it's about, I say, I, I've worked quite well on that 100, grams an hour for a little while now. Um, yeah, it seems to go in. It seems to not upset my stomach. What I have more issues with is fluid. Um, Certainly in hot races, I feel I have to get a lot in, which can be quite a logistical challenge and quite a um, yeah, quite a hard thing to do. So I say trying to get that fluid in at a regular rate is as much of a challenge as the carbs at the minute.
Mm.
Certainly at UTS last year, which was quite a hot day, I think I was just over a litre an hour, which ends up being it's quite a lot to drink. But
Mm.
certainly I felt the improvements where I am drinking more because I'm quite prone to cramping. This is the
Mm.
and I think if you I'm not sure there is a link between hydration and cramping, but I feel it can't
Seems to
be
be.
a
Seems to be, doesn't
it
there?
can't it can't be it can't be a good thing to be
Mm.
dehydrating and then yeah. So
That's interesting. Yeah. Is that something that you sort of you implementing in your training, sort of training your gut to take on more fluids? Is that something that you consciously do, or is it just purely through, race efforts?
yeah, I mean it's a lot through those kind of either high intensity sessions in training or those kind of race specific efforts. I eat and drink a lot in the long run, but eating and drinking when you're running at kind of lower intensities is tends to be a bit easier anyway.
Mm.
Um, I think the hard thing is finding that kind of specific environment to practice because, you know, UTS last year was pretty warm, but it wasn't like we had much warm weather in Scotland in the months preceding. So I wasn't necessarily um it's pretty hard to train that kind of rate of fluid intake. Training the
Mm.
rate of carb intake is really easy because um especially I do quite a lot of treadmill work, kind of uphill tempos and things like that, where yeah, you just lay out the gels on the front of the treadmill and put them in as necessary. So yeah,
A bit more difficult. Those endurance, um am I saying it right? Endurance,
yeah,
isn't it? Yeah, they're
yeah,
they're 45 gels are they are great. I was a bit dubious of them at first because I'd got them on sort of the recommendations of seeing all you guys using them
mm,
on the elite trail team. And the first one I had, I hated it. And I think it was because I'd been so used to like other gels and just sort of taking them on board and tasting them, um, and then being like easy on the palate sort of thing. So the first ones I got were the orange ones,
yeah,
and I took them in and like really tasted them, and I was like, these taste. I don't like the taste of them, and I realized that I think I was just overthinking it a bit too much, and then I've learned since then to sort of just gulp them down and take them down, and I've used them like successfully in races because I was a bit going from gels that were like sort of 20, 25 to then swapping them for like 45s. I was worried that it was going to sort of be a big hit of carbs and that it would upset my stomach. But of trialing them at different races, they seem to work really well. And I know that at the last race I used them and I use them for the whole race. And normally for me, for a whole ultra, I will always get sick of gels towards the end and I'll just stop
mm,
taking them. And but I did Tour de Helvellyn, the race that you obliterated
yeah,
the course record on the last year, and I managed to sort of fuel myself with purely with gels all the way around, and I was really chuffed with that. And I think maybe it's just gel technology has come such a long way, hasn't it? From probably from what they were years ago, maybe.
yeah. Well, so I first tried an endurance gel at so Doug gave me a couple at the European Champs in 2024, and I tried them. I thought, "Oh, well, not sure," but they were you can get them pretty cheap on Amazon at the time, and
Mm.
so it was something like, and I think you can get them quite cheap now as
They're
well.
still cheap, yeah. They're
Um,
still cheapest gels
and
I've found.
um, I thought, oh, I'll give another box a try because it's for 45 grams they're really good value. And what I think I realized is um, I think it's the fact that they've got salt in them.
Yeah.
And so initially when you taste it, you're expecting something that's a bit sweeter.
Mm.
But it's got this salty taste, which initially I thought, oh, I'm not sure about that. But
Mm.
when you're out there and you're running, they actually go down really well.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
little bit of salt well, one, it gets the electrolytes in
Mm.
during the race, but also it just makes you want to consume it, and
Mm.
it makes you want, we all know, like if you've got a bit of salt in, it makes you want to drink, it makes you want to kind of eat, and so I found actually once I stopped thinking about, I think because I was th expecting it to taste just of lemon or just of orange,
Mm.
but it was kind of a little bit salty. I found that weird at first, but then I actually think it's great because
Mm.
it gets them in and it means you don't get as much kind of flavor fatigue,
Mm.
because you're not, it's not this
Not sweet, sweet,
sweet,
sweet all the time. Yeah.
thickly like,
Mm.
and so I bought those gels all that year. I raced OCC with them. Um, and then they came on board to sponsor the team last year. So I say I was buying them before we were sponsored, and
Mm.
certainly if I run out of gels, I'm buying more of them. So
Mm.
really been a product that's worked well for me, and yeah, it's kind of
Yeah, they
easy to
work
give
well.
that endorsement there.
Yeah. Shout out to Endurance and welcome
Mm,
to offers of sponsorship of the podcast. Yeah, they are good. And as you were saying that, I realized that you're absolutely right because I'd gone from, like some of my favorite gels were like goos, and they're obviously like
mm,
super sickly, aren't they? Like chocolate flavors
yeah,
and birthday cake and stuff like that. And
yeah,
that's probably why over the years I've got sick of having gels later in races, and the fact that they've got that bit of salt in just means that yeah, your body's craving salt anyway, isn't it? So you're giving
mm,
yourself what you need. Yeah, great
yeah,
product. And they are
yeah.
cheap. Yeah. So if anyone's listening to this, go and
I
have a
mean,
look. You can
it's
get them
worth a
for
try,
about,
at least.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they're only like a couple of quid per gel, maybe less than that, I think.
Mm,
I'm sure they are cheap.
yeah,
So big advert for endurance gels. So I
yeah,
appreciate that. Not that they need
yeah.
the advertising for me. Right, I'm aware of I'm keeping you a long time. What are your plans for the rest of the year then? Obviously you're gonna go to UTMB, you're going to Chamonix, aren't you? So
Yeah.
is what's in between that?
Well, the main plan A, is to run the trial for the European Champs Trail. So I um, ran very poorly at the World Champs. I'd like to kind of redeem myself a little bit
Mm,
in a GB vest. So um, the trial race for that is on the 11th of April in the Lakes. It's a run through trails, 50K
mm,
in the Lakes, and so that'll be the next race if all kind of goes to plan with training and recovery. European Champs in June, and then OCC in August. And then plan A would be to finish the year with a another longer race. So I'm eyeing up Templier,
oh yeah.
which is an 80K in, I think it's middle of October. I tried to race Worlds this year a month after OCC, and I simply wasn't recovered.
Mm,
Um, didn't have the kind of bandwidth to race well again. And so I'm hoping that um, just by giving myself another kind of 3, 4 weeks, that I'll be able to get into things slower, give myself more recovery, and get back into decent nick by the time of the race, rather than um, yeah, Worlds this year was a tight turnaround. Yeah.
yeah. So plans for do you have any plans to go back? I know this obviously a year away, but to go back to Arc, are you going to be going back every year, or is he sort of happy with that result
Well, I
this
mean,
year?
yeah, I say probably in I love the Arc is a fantastic race. It's got character, and like um I like that about the race, and I like that it's as a British race, it's kind of pushing forward British trail running. Um Not sure about next year. I'd love to go back and run the 50 on a dry year. I
Mm,
think on a dry, even not a dry year, but like a this year was very wet. Just like a a decent conditions year, I think there's a lot of time that can come off what I
Mm.
ran. Um, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm probably not going to step up to the 100. Um, I I'd love to. The 100-mile distance is quite intriguing because as a track runner, it's always kind of a landmark of how much you're running in the week. So if you start doing 100-mile weeks,
Mm.
you're training at really good volume. So to do it in one race would be quite fun. But um, I think if I do end up going that direction, I'll start with something that's more at the flatter and faster end rather than going for a overnight um, being battered by
Mission.
wind
Yeah.
and rain on the coastal path of Cornwall.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So maybe a nice summer Centurion race, maybe 100
well,
miler.
we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, no,
Awesome.
it's yeah, yeah.
That's amazing. I appreciate you coming on, Chris, and I realised that it was probably long overdue. I should have had you on a long time ago. And I had sort of commented on some of your performances and kept thinking I need to get Chris on, and I ain't got round to it. So I appreciate you coming on and giving a bit of your time on a Friday night. Obviously, you're Billy No Mates just like I am tonight. So
Yeah. No, no worries. It's been lovely to chat. It's yeah, nice to come on and yeah, have a nice conversation.
yeah, we'll definitely have you back if this hasn't put you off completely. We'll definitely have you back on next time
Yeah,
you have a good race and want to come on and talk about it.
yeah. No, no, thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for listening, everyone. Cheers. Bye 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 bye.